Why do some people get these miraculous healings, while other people with just incredible faith, keep on suffering? It's one of those questions that really gets to the heart of what it means to believe. So today, we're going to dive into a theological framework from Rawle Tyson that tries to tackle this profound challenge head-on.
So this is the big question everything else hangs on. In Christian theology, the atoning work is, everything Christ accomplished on the cross, forgiveness, eternal life, the whole deal. But does that package also include physical healing for us, right here and right now? Okay, so how does Tyson's framework even begin to unpack a question that big and that personal? Well, it starts with an answer that seems simple at first, but it's actually got this twist that sets up the whole conversation.
And boom, right there is the core of this whole perspective. The answer is yes. Healing is part of what was won on the cross. But, and this is a really big but, we might not get the full delivery of that promise until the next life. So how can something be both promised and still kind of pending?
Well, the key to making sense of that tension is this really powerful theological idea. It's called the already and the not yet. And it's basically a way of describing what it's like to live in this overlap between two different ages.
Let's break this down, because this slide is really key. In the already column, everything is in the present tense. We are saved. The kingdom has begun. It's a reality right now. But then you look over at the not yet column and you see the future promise. Our bodies aren't perfected yet. We're still waiting for that final glorification. It's like we've got the down payment on our salvation, which is amazing, but we're still waiting to move into the fully finished house.
And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. This quote from the theologian Gordon D. Fee just hits the nail on the head. He's talking about the Apostle Paul, who could actually be joyful even when he was sick or struggling, because his hope wasn't really based on his day-to-day circumstances. It was based on that rock-solid future promise, that not yet part of the deal.
So you see, this already not yet concept is more than just theology. It actually becomes a real framework for helping us navigate one of the toughest questions out there. Why do good people still have to suffer? And within this way of thinking, suffering isn't just this random, awful tragedy. It can actually have a purpose. It's this idea of perfection through suffering, that hardship can be a tool for spiritual growth, kind of like how Christ himself was perfected through what he suffered.
And this all connects back to the idea of living in what theology calls a fallen state. This verse from Romans is pointed to, and it suggests that our whole physical world, our bodies included, is not in its final, perfect form. Sickness, decay, that's all part of this groaning, this deep longing for the ultimate redemption that's still on its way. Okay, so if guaranteed healing isn't always part of the deal in this life, then what are the things that actually determine when and why it does or doesn't happen? Well, the framework lays out a few different possibilities. And as you can see, this is not a simple formula. It's a complex mix of things. Some of it is purely divine, God just deciding to act or responding to prayer. But some of it is deeply human, hardship being used as a test, or just the simple fact that our bodies get old. And then, at the end of it all, there's that last one, unexplained mystery.
Now, this is a really crucial point. This view doesn't pit faith against science. It's not an either-or situation. God can work through two different channels. One is direct, what we'd call divine healing, but the other is through what the source calls divine means, God using doctors and medicine and science as his tools to bring about that healing.
This framework also gives us a way to think about something we all face: getting older. And this verse from 2 Corinthians, man, it just captures that already/not yet tension so perfectly. Our physical body, our outer self, is part of this world that's wasting away. That's the not yet part. But at the exact same time, our spirit, our inner self is being renewed. That's the already part of salvation we can experience right now. And that brings us to the hardest part of this whole topic, the part that's just tough to wrap your head around, the real-world examples that seem to break every rule and defy any simple explanation.
Right. This is the question that puts the entire framework to the test. What about the people who have a faith that could move mountains, who are prayed for by thousands, and yet they aren't healed?
This framework doesn't shy away from that question. It leans right into it, pointing to these specific, well-known cases. Oral Roberts, a giant of faith healing, who still grew old and died. These stories are a stark reminder that faith doesn't always equal physical healing in this life.
So what's the answer? After all of that faith, all those prayers, why? The framework lands on a single, incredibly humbling word: mystery. Sometimes we just don't get a clear answer. The why is simply beyond our ability to understand.
And that's really where Rawle Tyson's reflection leaves us. It doesn't try to tie everything up in a neat little bow. It doesn't pretend to have every answer. Instead, it gives us a way to think, a framework for holding the tension of what's already true and what we're still waiting for. And in the end, it just leaves us with an invitation to simply think about these things.